Our next speaker is Cortney Harding. She's the founder and CEO of Friends of Holograms. She's an Emmy-nominated futurist, AI, and VR strategist and speaker. She's a faculty member at the Fast Future Executive. Please welcome Cortney to the stage.
All right. I love that video. That video was so great, Hari. I literally don't want to know how much time you spent watching old BBC clips, but that's amazing. So here's where we are at right now. The future is spatial. Now, you might have noticed a book called The Spatial Race being promoted out there. That is my book. It came out on Tuesday. I am not going to be able to cover an entire 200-page book in 15 minutes up on the stage. So if you're interested in learning more, please go ahead and check out the book. You'll get a copy, and I'm happy to sign it for you. So this is a really brief overview. And the thing, again, I love about that clip is it tees up so perfectly what we're going to talk about in terms of the next 10 years. So where are we going exactly? The next 10 years, we will see rapid progress and change. And what we need to do right now is start preparing for that. So this image I have here is of a woman wearing the Meta display glasses. They were announced a couple weeks ago at MetaConnect. They're being released right now. Early reviews have been mixed, but they will, in the next 5 to 10 years, become the dominant way that we are consuming information and interacting with the world. And that is a radical shift from what we've been doing so far. So let's back up a little bit. This is the central model of this book. We will, in the next 10 years, move from the meta present, where we are now, and we are communicating one-to-one, to the metaverse, where we are communicating as one-to-many, and finally into the metaphysical world, where we communicate many-to-many. And I know that sounds complicated, so let me explain. Right now, with this new technology, people do things like they discrete activities. So they put on a headset, they query ChatGPT, they go into Sora and make a video of their cat dancing the tango. These are things they have to lean in to do, and they do them kind of as a one-on-one activity. Now let's rewind back to that clip we saw earlier today of Bill Gates and David Letterman talking. And this is a famous clip, and Bill Gates is making all these, David Letterman is making all these jokes about, why would I use the internet? Can't I just listen to baseball on the radio? Why would I want to chat with these weirdos online, right? Now, of course, we all know how that played out. The internet started as one-to-one. We were just communicating one-on-one with each other. It was a place we visited. So in the 90s, when I first got the internet, my parents had a computer, and it was in the computer room in our house. And I would go to the computer room, and I would dial up, and I will not make the sound for you because I don't want to break your eardrums. But I would dial up to the internet, and I would go online, and I would chat with people, and I'd look at websites. It would be this kind of solitary practice. And then after an hour, my mom would say, hey, get off the computer, I need to call your aunt. And I would get off the computer, and then I would go do something else. And I would go 2 days, 3 days a week without going on the computer again. Think of that. Think of how kind of magical that sounds. Because then, as we got persistent Wi-Fi and smaller devices, it became a place that we spent a lot of time, but there was still clear delineation, right? So the meta-present, where we are now, is analogous to that early 90s internet. The metaverse, where we're going next, is analogous to kind of that early to mid-2000s internet, post-Web 1.0 bubble, where, again, there was still this clear delineation. Where we are going in the future is this metaphysical world, where we live in this future technology. So now, we live on the internet. We are constantly connected. And by the way, those glasses, they're gonna make that 10 times either worse or better, depending on how you think about things. So where we are going is a world where people will spend long periods of time in these immersive and interactive worlds with full integration of digital and physical spaces. This will be powered by artificial intelligence, and this will be a radical paradigm shift in how we consume and interact with information. So let's break things down a little bit more. How will things change? So in the next 10 years, AI will become a lean-back technology. Again, AI right now is a lean-forward technology. So if I want to use AI in my day-to-day life, I open the ChatGPT app and I query it. I speak to it, I prompt it, I ask it questions, I have it build things for me. I have to make the effort to do something. Or I use the Perplexity comment browser. Or I go on Sora and I prompt it to make a funny video and I send it to my friends. So these are all things where I have to take an action. In the future, AI will just be running in the background. It'll be the pipes of the internet, the series of tubes, to recall that meme. So what it'll look like is this. Right now, let's say I get a letter in the mail from my health insurance company. And this is something that has happened to all of us. And they say, we've denied your claim because of whatever reason they can make up. So I call, and maybe I talk to a bot, and the bot is probably useless. So I just wind up yelling, representative, representative, human, on and on and on into the loop. And finally, I get somebody, and that person may or may not have 1 or 2 functioning brain cells, and I have to waste time explaining things to them again and again. And it's a terrible experience. And 90% of the time, it's like, oh, we put in the wrong code. Sorry. And that's an hour of my life I will never get back. You know how much I charge for an hour of my time? I really need to start billing these people in the other direction, okay? So that's the present. 5 years from now, it will be slightly better insofar as if I get this letter in the mail, I can go online, I can go to their website or call them up. I'll speak to a bot that's been trained on everything. The bot will probably fix it. It'll fix it quickly. There's no need to wait on hold because bots are infinite. It'll be a better experience. But 10 years, the AI will be smart enough to see this error and fix it before it even gets to me. So AI will replace customer service people, not insofar as I will be calling them or querying them. It will just obliterate their work. So the second is how we will consume this information. Our phones will be replaced by smart glasses and head-mounted devices, and they will be powered by AI, and they will serve us contextual information all day long. So right now, I get a notification on my phone, and it's just kind of a dumb set of notifications. Any notification I get beeps the same way. So is it my grandparent telling me their cancer surgery went well? Or is it some random politician asking me for $5? Doesn't matter, beeps the same. In the future, these notifications will be served to us in a much smarter way. So I won't see things unless I really want to see them or need to see them. Everything will be organized like that. And the third is the death of friction. So automation, robotics, and AI will cut down the amount of time that we spend doing things, right? Already, we've seen our workflows increase, we've seen our productivity increase, and we've seen the amount of time we spend standing around waiting in line decrease by quite a lot. So how many of you remember, again, I'm just gonna go back to the 90s, going to the bank, waiting in line at the bank to make a deposit, waiting in line at the grocery store while somebody paid cash or wrote a check. All of these things we had to do back in the day, we don't have to do anymore. Things have sped up. And AI and robotics and automation will make that go even more quickly. The challenge with that is once we have 90% reduction in friction, what happens the other 10% of the time? How will we react? Already we see people losing their minds constantly when they run into a tiny little problem. I'm sure you've gotten down a TikTok rabbit hole, or maybe it's just me, and you see people, throwing temper tantrums at the airport because their flight's delayed or something, right? People are less used to friction, and that's gonna be a big shift in our society to make sure that as we have a frictionless society, what do we do when we encounter friction? So why start now? Why? I mean, this stuff is coming, it's the future, we all know that, but so many people are paralyzed. So the first, Blockbuster. We all know the Blockbuster story, and yet, so many companies didn't pay attention to it. The innovator's dilemma has been taught in business schools for, 30, 40 years. Clayton Christensen has been dead for 5 years, RIP. But every company I talk to is like, oh yeah, we're changing, we're doing AI, sure, right? They're not. They have incumbent status, and they sit on their laurels, and they don't make the change. And guess what? Blockbuster was then, And somebody out there right now is starting Netflix of whatever your industry is. And that should terrify you. Because to go to our center image, the one thing that you need to be doing is being better than your competitor. So this is an example of a Waymo. You've seen them running around LA. They're in San Francisco. They are coming to New York very soon. And when it was announced that Waymo was coming to New York, somebody wrote an article in the New York Times that A, encouraged price fixing, which I'm pretty sure is illegal, but I'll just overlook that, and B, basically was saying, oh, we need to protect jobs and this and that, and, that's not the right way to look at it. Why would I get in a cab or get in an Uber when I could get in a Waymo? A Waymo is faster. A Waymo is cleaner. Waymo has never been accused credibly of sexual assault, unlike several Uber drivers, right? So this is going to be the mistake that people make, because when Uber came to New York, what did New York City cab drivers do? They didn't get better. They didn't explain how their product was different or superior. They yelled and they screamed and they stomped their feet. And guess what? Uber came anyway. So the challenge now is not to throw a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old and still lose. It's to say, this exists. How am I better? And how can I tell a better story? And the third thing is you need to start collecting all that data that is going to be so incredibly valuable right now. Because that data is what is going to set you and your company apart when you can have that entire data library and use it in a smart, contextual way. Now let's talk about the nightmare scenario. This is a really interesting video. It's called Hyperreality. It came out in 2016. And this is an image of what it would look like if AI and contextual information ran amok in smart glasses. So obviously we don't want this. We don't want this insanity beamed into our eyeballs 24/7. But what we do need to do is make sure that the experience we are creating is useful and contextual for people. So I don't drink soda. I haven't had a soda in 15 years. That's not a value judgment. There's plenty of other things that I consume that are not good for me. But when Coca-Cola spends money advertising and I see it, that's a wasted impression. I mean, Jessica talked about this a lot in her talk too. What we need and what we can get out of this is contextual information that is useful for every single one of us. So if you're a soda fan, great, get Coca-Cola. If you're a natural wine fan like I am, great, get that. We don't want this to be ugly or overwhelming. We don't want another Cory Doctorow book called Enshittification version 2.0 coming out in 10 years that is this reality. What we need to do is design it and design it well. So here are the 4 key design principles that I lay out in the book, and I want everyone to start thinking about. The first is you have to design this stuff and build this stuff for impact. How many times have you been at a corporate meeting and someone has talked about the AI work they're doing and it is so groundbreaking and revolutionary and amazing and exciting and da-da-da-da-da. And then you finally ask, okay, well, what is it? And I did that once, and it was a wiki. They basically had a new version of the wiki powered by AI. Now, corporate wikis are great, don't get me wrong. They're useful and they're relevant and everything. However, if you're using revolutionary technology, updating your wiki might not be the best use case. So you need to make sure that you are designing for real impact and you have KPIs and measurable outcomes in place to make sure these projects are successful. The 95% of AI projects fail number has been thrown around a lot, but none of these are actually failures. They're just learnings. And a lot of the time, they're not failing because the projects were bad or because the AI was bad. They're failing because nobody knew how to measure them. So you need to make sure you're designing for impact. The second is you are designing for user experience. And by that, I mean design for the least technical person in the room. Don't be designing for prompt engineers or people that are experts, because only a few people will use that. Design for people who know nothing and can use the product. That is the real win. That's why the iPhone won. That's why the iWatch won. That's what you need to do. The third is, again, don't just experiment for the sake of it. Don't just go in there and say, okay, I'm going to try this thing. Yeah, experiment. But do the research. Ask the hard questions. Find where you can make real change. And the fourth is, again, minimize friction. Make this easy for people to get their hands on and create a permission structure for them to use it. So I have a friend who just finished college. She's an executive assistant. And she's really into technology, and she decides, okay, I'm gonna start automating my workflow because my boss is up here talking about AI, and everyone in my company is up here talking about AI. So she started automating her emails, her reports, everything's automated. She told her boss, and rather than congratulating her, her boss threatened to fire her. Because while they talk a big game, there's not a permission structure to actually use the technology. So make sure people can actually use what you are building. So thank you again so much for your time and attention. Please come see me afterwards. I'm happy to sign your book for you. And have a great rest of your afternoon.